Hey everybody, welcome to DadsDen of Pop Culture and Mighty Thor Monday. Our review through this year of Walt Simonson's legendary run on the Mighty Thor. Today we're looking at Thor issue number 360 from October of 1985. Great cover. Let's do a little close-up on the cover. Who might this be who's giving Thor such trouble? Well, we will find out as we look through the book. So let's crack her open here. Art and story in this one by Walter Simonson, of course. Lettering, John Workman Jr. Colors, Christy Shield. Editing, Ralph Macchio. Editor-in-chief, Jim Shooter. It is called Into the Valley of Death. So this is going to launch the next big phase of Thor's adventures, written by Walt Simonson. As we get the warriors of Asgard coming home through that portal, we saw that created at the end of the last issue. And some of them are bringing through crates of precious goods from Midgard that may never be seen there again. Two of the warriors, three, managed to get through easily. Volstagg is the last one out. He sort of gets shot out and lands supine on the ground. They say, I think, your girth maybe is what kept the portal open as long as it was opened, as long as it did. He says, say rather that the strength of Volstagg's nearly boundless frame hath once again come to the aid of his brothers. So they are back through to Asgard. They don't know all that has happened, but they're about to find out. Warriors of Asgard, 'tis the voice of Thor. Where is Odin? Surely the liege lord of the realm should greet the returning heroes. Be thou silent and attend. What is this? I do not see the palaces of Asgard. Where are the soaring spires of our great city? Warriors, heed the words of the lady Frigga, who stands beside me, for she will say what must be said before the assembled multitude. And she does. I salute you, brave warriors. You have won a great victory for Asgard and for all the 9 worlds. Without your valor and your courage, all our hopes would have been in vain. But though you have come home, 'tis not a homecoming that any of you could have foreseen. The war with Surtur has been costly. The great city of Asgard has nearly been destroyed, and yet this is the least of our losses. O warriors, weeping for your mates, who shall not return from earth. O children crying for your fathers and mothers, who shall not see Asgard's majesty again, know that Frigga shares your grief. For Odin, the All-Father, fell with Surtur into the fires of Muspelheim. Your liege lord, my husband, has sacrificed himself that the 9 worlds might live. Sacrifice was a bit of a it's the word I want to use here, a theme with Odin. Sacrificing his eye, to gain magical knowledge, things of that nature. So it's presented to them that they have to choose a new leader. Frigga is going to hold that royal scepter until then. And Thor then announces, Asgardians, the war is over. I say that as Frigga now holds the scepter in trust. But he says, there is another wrong yet to right. For the allies of Surtur have labored mightily in his cause, and much of their work remains to be undone. Far below us, in the kingdom of Hela, the death goddess, mortal souls lie languishing in bondage, sent there by the treacherous wiles of Malekith, the accursed. Those innocent victims of ageless evil were sent to hell when they tasted the food of fairy, leaving behind their bodies on Midgard as slaves to the dark elves. So that's what Thor is keyed in on, and he calls on them. I'm going into her realm, and I'm going to bring them back. Who's with me? And the warriors, of course, are ready to go fight again, because they're Asgardians, and that's what they do. And then Haraken, the leader of the Einherjar, kind of pulls Thor aside, and he goes, we sort of brought back some goodies from Midgard, and they might be useful in this. He says, but say the word, and we'll show Hela teeth of steel she never dreamed existed. I sometimes think, Haraken, that the prescience of mortals frequently exceeds that of the gods. We get a brief moment between Thor and Sif. She has not forgiven him for having smacked her while he was under the spell of Lorelei. And they're doing some good work here between these two. And Sif, and again, the choices she's making. I talked earlier on, there's a lot of transitions in Simonson's run on Thor. Thor losing the identity of Donald Blake. Sif deciding, is she going to leave Thor for somebody else? There's a lot of that going on. Balder had some choices to make too. And this is one of them for her. And they keep up with that storyline. And she's then confronted by her brother, Heimdall, who says, Thor seems grimmer than is his wont, but never doubt that he loves you, sister. I cannot imagine, Heimdall, that if he truly loved me, he would have struck me under any circumstances. What tiny imaginations immortals have. Flawed he may be, and deeply hurt by the loss of his father, yet perhaps no wound goes deeper than this one. He struck me, Heimdall. However can I forget that? No one has asked you to. I read that badly. Let's try that again. No one has asked you to. But is it so difficult a thing to forgive? Well, it could very well be a very difficult thing to forgive, but I do think we need to recognize there were some odd circumstances involved with him being under this magic spell. And then Amora seeks Heimdall out. She wants to have a little talk with him. Thor, meanwhile, goes to the Hall of Odin. He needs to find the road to hell. He needs to find the way to get there for a person who's alive. And he's going to use these runes of Odin to do it. Frigga is worried about that. They're not something to mess around with. They can be dangerous. Even Odin didn't like to mess around with them. But she also recognizes that maybe part of what Thor is wanting is to see if his father's shade is present in hell. Is Odin truly dead? And she's worried about what he might find in that regard, too. Well, he takes those runes and he goes up to the high seat, top of this mountain, and he uses them. And he calls forth the spirit of Angerboda, the mother of monsters. Angerboda I call mother of three monsters, whom Hela hath summoned long ago. Rise from your tomb and walk again in the land of the living. And he thinks the storm grows more frenzied. Angerboda is here, and she says, unwilling I have come, son of Odin. I would say no more. And by the way, that is really, really stunning. Walt Simonson, I don't know if you know this, but he's pretty good at art, that guy. So he asks her a couple times, finally commands her, and she tells him, and this is pure fantasy stuff. This is just pure cool fantasy. Seek in the shadows of the hellhound Garm for the entrance. Black the entrance, blacker still the journey. 9 days' ride will bring you to the river Gjol and the bridge Gjalabru. Modgud guards the bridge, and Helgate lies beyond it. Unwilling I have spoken, I would say no more. And he says, and I have seen what no living being should see. Return, Angerboda, to your grave and leave the land of life. I have learned what I must know, and I release you. Well, maybe it's not quite that easy. She says, I can actually give you a much quicker way to Hela's realm by killing you. And she attacks him, and you see she takes on this skeletal appearance and covers his mouth so he cannot command her. So he ends up using Mjolnir to shatter the runes around her neck. And she's gone. And he knows now what he needs to know. We catch up with Heimdall and Amora. She's kind of saying, hey, you're not tied to the bridge anymore. Maybe I should know you better. And he's like, okay. But what about this guy following us? What? It's Scourge, the executioner. He's finally found the Enchantress. Remember, she left him on Midgard, and he didn't like that. And she's basically like, you know what? Maybe it's time you get used to being away from me. And turns his feet into tree trunks, casts a spell of silence on him, basically, do not bother me again when I'm with another man, and leaves him there. Your friend, Amora, has departed for another part of the forest. Forget him. I have. Yeah, the Enchantress is cold, man. The Enchantress is cold. And that's gonna feed into things here. What she's just done to the Executioner. We see Asgard being rebuilt. We see the return of Balder. Now, the Balder the Brave miniseries basically occurs, let's go back a little bit here, to where Thor speaks right there to Angmar. Thor sends Angmar to find Balder in the land of the Norns. So between this panel and this panel is the Balder the Brave miniseries. For the next 4 weeks, we are going to look at that miniseries. And I thought about cutting this book half off and then, saying, well, we'll finish the rest of it. I'm like, no, let's just do this full issue. But the next 4 weeks, we're going to be looking at the Balder the Brave miniseries and how Balder got from the land of the Norns to here. They greet, and he says, Thor, there's things I didn't tell Volstagg about my trip to Hell. And I think you need to hear about it. And what he basically tells him is the only way I got out was going through all of the men I had ever killed and sent to Hell. Thousands of them. And he says, you need to understand that is the way out of Hell. And now we kind of knew about this because in the earlier issues, we saw Balder talking about this, and it, basically gave him, some problems that he had to work through. A lot of trauma, confronting all of that death he had caused in his life. And so he says, he goes, I had slain my 10,000s again. This is what you ask of every hero who rides with you. Hela shall be waiting eagerly to greet the men who have done so much to fill her empty halls. And he says to Balder, I have given my word, Balder. I will go into Hell if I have to go alone. I knew your answer, my dearest friend, and one at least shall ride with you into the darkness. Then let the hordes of Hell beware. And we get a last meeting with Frigga, who says, my poor boy, I fear that even Hela shall not be able to give you what you seek. In other words, knowledge, closure of Odin. She will yield up the mortals, Frigga, or never shall I see the golden roofs of Asgard. If all you find in Hell are the mortals, I fear you will not be satisfied, Thor. Then so be it. May the golden realm endure as long as the 9 worlds. And then Sif shows up. And Hela excuses herself. She goes, I see that you have things to talk about, so I will leave. And I'll read through this. Thor says to her, what is it you want, Sif? I can see that my very presence causes you pain. Why do you seek me out? I want to know why you struck me and why you let me go with Beta Ray Bill. Love is the answer to both questions, Sif. I could not hold you from going with Bill when he and his quest were what you needed most. And my love for Lorelei was so all-consuming, so all-enveloping, that I would have done anything for it. But that love was false, a spell wrought of magic. Perhaps that made it all the more potent. Now, like all magic, it has faded into nothing, but the consequences remain. Are you certain there is not another answer? That in fact you may never have loved me truly? What can I answer to that? You would have certainty when all I see now is illusion. When Odin vanished, he took all certainty with him. But this I truly know. I loved the Lady Sif as I have never loved another. Will you call Bill to the Althing? I think it might actually be pronounced Alting, but I'm not really sure. For what reason? He is no Asgardian. And she says, he is Odin's last, perhaps his greatest work, as worthy as the mighty Thor himself. Another certainty, my lady? Very well. Summon Bill back from Earth if you desire, but remember what I am learning now. Magic, even my father's, may only be illusion in the end. and we live with the consequences. Now, if you will pardon me, the longer we delay, the longer innocence must languish in hell. And he leaves. And Frigga tells her, yet heed this one word. Beta Ray Bill is a worthy hero indeed. But beware, he is a mortal. And in the end, mortals may be as illusory as magic. So Sif has to make a choice here between Thor and Bill. And she's trying to figure that out. Thor leaving is stopped by the executioner. What do you want, Scourge? I am in no mood for trifles just now. Nor am I, Thor. I want to ride with you into hell. You would not regret it. 'Tis something I need to do. I think perhaps we shared the same need, Executioner. Very well. We leave within the hour. Share the same need. What does he mean there? What is he talking about? He's talking about escaping lost love. Part of what's sending him so quickly into hell is that moment with Sif. And the executioner now knows that Amora, for sure, never loved him. He should have known that before, but he knows it for sure. And so, less than an hour later, how goes it, Balder? All is ready, my friend. I think the long night has begun. The Einherjar are impatient, my lord. Then follow me, you heroes, and let the hunt begin, for Hela beckons, and the hellhound Garm awaits. That's the kind of stuff. That's the kind of stuff you wanted from Walt Simonson, Thor. Look at that. All the warriors, Thor on his chariot. And the next one is The Quick and the Dead, or Hell is for Heroes. So that's going to be the next big phase of this mythic storyline. Thor is going to invade Hell to free the mortals, maybe find out more about Odin, maybe things that he doesn't want to find out. We'll see. And meanwhile, Sif is trying to figure some stuff out too. Lots of good emotional stuff, which is what you want from comic books. You want action, you want fights, but you want more than that too. And Mighty Marvel delivered. Walt Simonson delivered in this series. That'll do it for the Mighty Thor number 360. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you enjoyed this, please give it a like, maybe subscribe, maybe share with a friend. But until next time, God bless everybody. Please be kind to one another. Have a little bit of fun out there, and I will see you again hopefully soon in Dad's Den of Pop Culture. Bye-bye.